Okay, so welcome. Good morning, everyone. Myself Vivek Shah. My founder and managing director at Capermint Technologies. So we have Mr. Surojit Roy from just yeah. We have Mr. Surojit, head of studio at CrazyLabs India, and we have Mr. Uh, I guess Balaji from
I can
Sunday.
introduce. I'm Balaji. I'm head of publishing at
Yeah,
Sunday. Nice to be here. Thanks for being the host.
yeah. Okay, so success secret operation and tips for MENA. Yeah. So let's start it, guys. Let's start with your introduction, and then we'll go with some sort of questions. You can
Mhm.
start any one of you guys.
I can
All
go
right.
ahead if you want, or go ahead, sorry, please.
I was about to let the stage go to you, but I'll go
Sure.
first.
I
I'm
can.
sorry,
Okay.
Balaji, you were saying something?
No, no, no. Sorry, I'll mute
All
myself.
right. I'm Surojit, head of studio at CrazyLabs India. Up until recently, as many of you may know, I was co-founder of Firescore Interactive. But in the last few months, Firescore was acquired by CrazyLabs. So it was great news for all of us, and the end of one story and the beginning of another. As we went from being a developer into now being on the publisher side of things. Um, so as far as my role now, my co-founder and I, Karan, we run the India division of CrazyLabs. And personally, for me, I'm heading up the business development and also running the Hubs Accelerator program, the Crazy Hubs Accelerator program that we're starting up now all over the world, and specifically a lot of hubs starting in India.
Nice. Congratulations on your achievements and your acquisition. It's amazing. Being from the Indian developer ecosystem previously as well, it's glad to hear that and see that. Yeah, I'm Balaji. I'm head of publishing at Sunday. We're a hyper casual publisher based out of Hamburg, Germany. We do work with a lot of hyper casual publishers around the world, but special focus for us is a lot of countries from the MENA territory and for which this panel is about. So happy to share our experiences over there.
Perfect. So like there are so much buzz about Mina and Vana, right? So everyone wanted to know about like what's the difference particularly you see between studios from North American market, Europe and Mina or Vana regions. Like everyone wants to know what's the biggest difference, particularly when you see between these territories. You can start with Surajit.
Oh, sure. So in my experience, at least, having seen things from the developer side for many years, and now, of course, transitioning into seeing things from the publisher side. The key difference, in my opinion, has always been in terms of opportunity for the developers. In terms of when you are from a tier one country and you're running a studio there, for example, it's quite likely that you had a number of opportunities in casual games, for example, over the past few years. Um, and this opportunity was not necessarily present for when I'm speaking specifically about the Wana region. I think this opportunity wasn't necessarily there for the smaller studios to pursue casual games. And why? Because generally speaking, in a hit-based industry like games, firstly, it's very difficult to raise funds if you're a game company, especially a small studio. And to have a big hit in casual games, you need to raise funds because you need to spend on marketing, on UA. You need to be in soft launch for many years. So in general, the way I see it is in tier one countries like North America and Europe, you see a lot of there's been a lot of opportunity for a smaller studio to live, survive, thrive because maybe funding is a little bit easier. And I know for a fact that raising funds here in India for a game company can be very difficult. So again, I think the key difference that I've seen is the fact that the opportunities have been very different. And of course, now with hyper casual coming up, the landscape for opportunity has changed completely, and that's something we're starting to see a big difference in, in the last couple of years.
Cool. I can go. So from my perspective, at least from my learnings or experiences, I would like to highlight three differences that I see. Cost, obviously, right? You can do more prototypes for the same amount of money compared to a studio in I don't know, like in North America or like Northern Europe or Western Europe. So in this, especially since hyper casual is a numbers game, right? You need more experiments to see which one of them like goes through and becomes a hit. So I would say that's an advantage. Same like what Surojit mentioned, there's no experience in working in games before, which I think is a good thing when it comes to hyper casual, because you don't have to unlearn too much, which can be sometimes of a bigger challenge than learning things. And if you combine that with like the passion for learning and the hunger for success that you see in these territories, amazing things can come out of it, right? And the third, I think, which is also super benefit is of super advantage in this market, it's a mobile first market, right? Most of the consumers or most of the developers even don't have any experience using any products on other computer. I mean, probably mobile phone is the first computing device, right? And then you learn it from lot from that, because then you use a lot of your digital products on everyday use on a mobile first experience, of which you bring that into the hyper casual game, which is also addresses a lot of this mobile first market, right? So yeah, that these would be the three from my side.
So do you guys feel any sort of let's say user behavior difference compared to these countries of North America and MENA region? Like anything on a user behavior you would like to say?
I'll let Balaji go first this time.
Thanks, Rajat. I mean, when you say user behavior, if you mean like if they like specific genres or not, at least in the hyper casual world, not that much, because I think there's a lot of Western pop influence, and then people do watch a lot of content that also the user base from other regions watch. But one key difference I would say is like probably people. I mean, when you're talking about consumers from these regions, yes, people do have longer session times and play times, because they are not afraid of spending more time on ads, right? They're used to that kind of behavior because the in-app purchases are like low in this territories. And if you have games that have positive impact on your experience by watching ads, they're more than open for it. And also people in these territories are used to longer work hours, longer commutes, so all these opportunities that you can play a game with one hand and with one finger while you're commuting, right? That makes a big difference. So you do see a lot of consumption on from that side, not necessarily revenue, but yeah, definitely high consumption.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely agree. Of course, we see, you know, many hours spent on games. If you build a game for say a MENA or WANA region, then you generally see great play times. You generally see great engagement, great retention for even like a simple game. But monetization tends to be very difficult. Again, the approach tends to be different again for these regions, and that I think in the end it comes down to the differences in user behavior. One thing I think I can specify here is that discovery of apps I think is different in different regions. So a lot of times, especially in the past, we've seen that word of mouth in a place like India, for example, right? Word of mouth, seeing somebody else playing a game and then specifically going after that game and wanting to play it is something that is very common, and it happens a lot in the mass market here. So when somebody's playing a game like Temple Run or a Subway Surfer, these games became hugely popular in our regions for a long time, and a lot of it was down to word of mouth, people seeing other people playing the games. We don't necessarily have people scrolling through the app stores here. People have their lives are more maybe difficult, you could say, especially when you compare the mass market, right, to something like North America or Europe. So, like I said, you don't have people scrolling through the app stores here, and discovery of apps is it's a very different process for the consumer market in WANA and MENA regions than it would be elsewhere. So that is one key difference in user behavior. That again, it affects the business side of how we reach the consumer.
Okay. So do you think any sort of infrastructure plays a role on this region? Like when you say about US or UK, right? They have a good infrastructure, internet and other parts. But compared to that, this Wana and Mina don't have that infrastructure. Do you think it plays any sort of challenge to your part, challenge to you guys?
You want to
We
go
can
ahead
go
or?
with we
Either way,
can go.
either way.
Yes.
I'll let you go ahead again this time.
Thanks, Surojit. I mean, what do you exactly mean by infrastructure? I mean, if you mean like telco connection and mobile
Exactly,
internet
exactly. The
connectivity,
telephone connection, internet
here,
connection.
yeah, I mean, MENA not that much, I think, and also, I mean, these are like fast developing economies, right? If you look at from this context, for the longest time, some of these countries did not have proper telephone connectivity, but they have like mobile
Exactly.
networks, right? So these have like leapfrog developers, the same as India, right? India missed out on the whole analog telephony stage, but look at like where the mobile is right now. And then if you talk to any big platforms or device company like Samsung or Google, and always the talk is where is the next 2 billion users come from? I mean, and these are the regions where the next billions of users are coming from. And then what are these users going to do with these devices? I mean, play games, right? Other than like other entertainment options and talking. Even I would say consumption of games is much more sometimes than like SMS or something. So I don't see that as a downside. In fact, I see this as like more promising factors that go into that are playing in the favor of the industry that we are in. For sure, the monetization and revenue have to be cracked, but eventually that will happen, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would agree with Balaji there definitely. Um, I would say it's less difficulty, and the technology that we have and the infrastructure that we have now is more of an equalizer. It's something that has bridged the gap and brought more gamers in, brought more people who interact with smartphones or interact with technology or software through their phones. And phones are more easily available now. And if you look at, maybe yes, we missed a big wave of internet infrastructure maybe in the past decade. But now with 3G, 4G, 5G, things have kind of equalized, and they've allowed access and accessibility to a very large portion of the audience that wouldn't have this accessibility before. So in terms of, yeah, in the past, maybe the differences in infrastructure were important because they held us back. But now the technology that we have today, I think, is becoming more and more of an equalizer as we go forward. So we're seeing, for example, a lot of trends that happen in the US or in the West are very quickly now followed here because we have people that are connected, that have their smartphones, that are always online, they're viewing the same things that everyone else is everywhere else in the world. They have access to the games. We have global launches happening all the time. So again, like Balaji said as well, it's more of now it's become an equalizer, and it's something going forward where we where we see less and less of a difference and less disadvantages in our regions than we did before.
Yeah. So as Balaji and you both says that the consumption of a games are more compared to revenue generation, right? Into this MENA and WANA region. So as a publisher, how do you see this development studio of this region, and how do you see indie developers in this region? Because as a publisher, your more focus will be on a revenue generation compared to consumption of a game. So will it be like when you have an option that you choose someone from North America and someone from MENA region, will you choose whom you gonna choose?
I guess I can go first this time. Um,
Yes.
I say it all comes down to talent, portfolio, what the studio is capable of. We've seen many a studio from MENA and WANA regions or other regions that are not necessarily North America and Europe that have produced hit games, great hit, huge number one top charts, massive successes, and they've come from these different regions. And ultimately, it does come down to the talent and the passion of the team and how hard they're willing to work, of course. And I, at least for us, that is something that comes first. Now,
Right.
in certain situations, when you have somebody from a MENA or WANA region and you have somebody from Western Europe or from America, there may be a difference in motivations. There may be a difference in how passionate somebody is or how badly they want to succeed. And when you have two equally talented portfolios in front of you, or people or portfolios in front of you, and maybe that's the way you're going to choose. If you had to choose one, then you look for the person or the team that is more passionate or more determined to succeed. And but ultimately, again, like I said, the portfolio and what you see and the products that people have made, the history of the team, those are the types of things you look at, and primarily those are the types of things we look at when we want to work with someone. But of course, there are X factors and softer things that we keep in mind when we're recruiting studios, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if you're talking in the context of hyper casual, it really doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter where the studio is. At the end of the day, we're all making games for countries that monetize better. So which are like tier one countries, right? And then they're tier two. So, and when you're talking about hyper casual, no one is making for the local economies as far as like, it's about just making for the global audience. And that's a great thing about hyper casual as well, because unlike some other mid-core or casual games or like bigger games, you really don't have to worry about like, I don't know, like cultural gaps, or you don't need to be like proficient in English, or you don't need to be like you don't need to have any skills that you would lack, that a Western developer would have, that you would lack, right? There is really no skill gap challenge. And like Surojit mentioned, technology is an equalizer, internet is an equalizer. So I think it's an amazing opportunity, in fact, that if you're located in these regions, that hyper casual really provides you this opportunity and platform to like even compete with like a king, even if it's for 1 hour that you top like in King's Cave, right? I mean, that's amazing. So yeah, I mean, as long as you're not making for these regions, and you're working on making the next global hit, it really doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah,
So,
I want to segue here for a moment, into something related. But right now we always talk about the opportunity being that, hey, we're developers from these different regions, and we're building for largely the North American market, right? Like in the West. I think eventually we will see opportunities come about where hyper casual delves deeper into each of these regions themselves and starts making localized content and games for a specific region. And we haven't got there yet. But when again it comes back down to the monetization
Yeah.
that we were talking about
The
earlier, and when
ECPMs decide, right? At the end of
yeah,
the day, the
exactly,
ECPMs
exactly.
decide for you. But one thing I would like to actually mention here is as well. But if you look at the user behavior, user like the consumer behavior in these regions, and in the hyper casual context again, it's very similar to audience of anywhere in the world. So it's totally possible, and some of these regions, or most of these regions, are super how do I call it, have close social bonds, right? You have like more social gatherings, you have more friends, so you get like a really cheap playtest base, right? If you think about it, and which is like much more open to feedback and stuff, which I would say is sometimes not possible in the Western countries. So it's about all just focusing on like the advantages you have around you to make these global hits.
okay. So on that connecting notes, what is your behavior like? What's your experience with MENA and WANA region developers when they wanted to publish the game on your platform as a publisher? Are they having an acceptance ratio, or are they having a good behavior in terms of taking your feedbacks and other notes? What's your experience on that? You can,
uh,
Surojit,
yeah,
you can start.
sure. So I think in terms of recruitment, what we're seeing now is that there is a very large community of developers, young developers, that are coming into play, that haven't necessarily been around before or available before for the games industry to tap into. And that a large part of that has been because of hyper casual, obviously, because of the opportunities it's opened up, and a lot of excitement being built at a young age for people to be able to get into the industry and have some big successes, without having to join a king or without having to try and get a job at Moonfrog or something like that. It's a new way of being able to live your life and to build your future, and that's something we're seeing a lot of happen recently. A lot of young people coming in, and that of course that tends to lead to slightly more immature portfolios that you see, and less developed skills, at least at first. And that is the whole, the the catch 22 here. If like you want the best studios, of course, and you want them all, you want the top studios to be working with you, but at the same time there's this whole crew of studios that are inexperienced, that are just coming into the market, but that are hungry and driven, and that within a year or two they could be the next big thing. And there's hundreds and thousands of these people that have popped up in the last couple of years. So it's a different space now than what it was before, and we've seen it evolve now firsthand into this really like bubbling and brewing hotbed for development. And with a lot of young people coming in, there's a lot of passion there, and there's a lot of motivation there to really make it big. So that's kind of what we've been seeing lately.
Okay.
Yeah, for us as well, same like what Surojit said. It's like the passion and the passion to learn and the hunger for success, and the willingness to put more hours into your productive days, because you're like self entrepreneurs, right? A lot of the studios are really small when they start, like 2 people, 3 people, and at that time, this is the only thing they do. So they do put a lot of work into it, and as a publisher, I think it's their job to then provide resources to fuel this learning, right? And to complement this hard work. So that means that, and some people from some of these regions do have difficulty with like speaking English and stuff, but perfectly fine in like verbal and written. So it's your job as a publisher to make sure then to have those have team on your side who are proficient in the local languages, right? And for me, at least from a publisher standpoint of view, I see that there's so much talent and so much passion. And what do we do to enable this or foster the development of these dev ecosystems? So yeah, learnings. And also as a publisher, I talked about this earlier as well, you really are a service org to these developer ecosystems, right? And you need to build on these orgs to provide for these dev ecosystem, that you obviously start with the publishing manager, who is your everyday point of contact, who helps in who, for example, you have like, I don't know, like a brilliant idea in the middle of the night, you post it, someone like validates you on the other end, because as a publisher you do have a lot of learning from you fail more than you succeed, right? And at the publisher level, it just
Yep.
amplifies compared to you as a developer, and you need to have this mediums or tools and processes to share these learnings with this ecosystem. So yeah, I think that's very, very important that you share and learn more with the ecosystems that you talk about. And if you talk about like the difference, we don't really compare like, oh, we have these many successes from MENA or WANA compared to these many successes from the Western economies or something, because at the end of the day, you also have to see the cost to the output, right? The ability to like fail more, that doesn't burn anyone, that will not make anyone go belly up. That's a super important aspect when you're working with MENA or WANA regions.
Definitely, and then they tend to be new studios as well. A lot of times they need that hand holding, right? I remember like when we were a new studio, it was very difficult to kind of just about survive every month, and still be thinking about what is the next hit game, and what is the next what's going to be our big breakthrough, so a lot of times you need to be like, as a publisher, you really need to be involved with the studios, and like Balaji is saying, it's a team effort from the beginning, when you sign to when you have your hit game. Throughout that process, it's a team effort. There's a lot of collaborative building and work that goes on, and a lot of mentoring from the publisher side that needs to go on, because again, there's a lot of these studios out there. Some of them are young, some of them are new, some of them may have experience but maybe struggling, and they need a little bit more than what they would normally get without having a publisher on board. And that's something that's important.
I mean, on that note, I would also like to add, like, the one thing that really stands out when we are working with the studios from these regions, that they're not afraid to ask, right? They ask anything. For example, and as a publisher, when you're working with these regions, you really have to look at the potential and not like at the track record, because there is no track record, right? They're like pretty new. So we had this studio who had just 2 people when they started, high potential. it was, I think, just 3 months when they started, but we really saw the potential in them, and they're not afraid to ask even before producing the first hit or whatever. Hey, we want the money to increase our studio size to 6 because this will help us increase our output from X to Y, and we're like, okay, sure, go for it, right? We believe in you, and this is the value add, I think, as a publisher, you should be bringing to these kind of ecosystems, because at the end of the day, your success, just you're reliant on people make games, right? People make hits, you're reliant on these people.
As Balaji always says, publisher is a service provider to the developer, right? I heard him so many times. So I'm just curious, like as a publisher, what do you select? You select a team or you select a concept? Which attracts the most at your end? Like someone is showing their ability to you, so you see that team or you see the concept. Okay, that concept can be having a good KPI and KRA in the future, so I should go with concept instead of team. Team can be taught right way, or I can handle them in the right way. So what's your thoughts on that? Yes, Balaji.
Uh, it's always the team, right? At the end of the day, you can't one concept, two concepts, three concepts, doesn't matter. You might have a really bad creative week. I mean, and you can come up with like, bad ideas, but that doesn't take away the fact that at the core, you're a good game maker. So it's always about the team. And also, like I said, from the concept of, or from the standpoint of us being a service provider, sometimes we do see that there are teams who are very deep in like, design or level design. They can make like great games at the product stage, and they can't come up with great concepts at the marketability stage because they might not have the bandwidth, they are small. And then as a as a service provider, it's our job also to like give them concepts. At the end of the day, if you have a success, that builds up your confidence, right? So it's in your interest that the studio has a success. Doesn't matter who comes up with a concept, right? At the end of the day, if you can't make a hit game out of your concept, what use is that concept? So it's always the
Exactly.
team for us first, and also when you see the potential, like you really need to bring everything to the table to foster that potential. Of course, it goes without saying that when a studio also sees that kind of a commitment from a publisher, they love working with you and they keep on working with you, right? We have tons of studios who, even after making hits and were being financially sustainable, they still are exclusive with one publisher because of that very reason, right? Because they see the value that the publisher brings in, apart from the money.
Yeah, makes sense. Absolutely. I would say that everyone has an idea or two or 10, all right? But unless you can execute that idea, it's really, it's worthless. At the end of the day, it's a piece of paper, it's in your head, or, it needs to be executed and executed well, and then, marketed and then taken to the people for, to let them see the ads and let them download the game. So everyone has an idea, but until it's executed, it's just an idea. It's just a piece of paper. And who executes ideas, right? Who executes them well? A good team, a great team will execute the best ideas well. And you can have unlimited great ideas. You can have lots of amazing design documents and lots of pieces of paper that ultimately mean nothing, because if you can't execute it, then what's the point of the idea? And that goes for any space, not just games, but for anything in life, right? Like we all have ideas, and they come to us at all kinds of hours, and like sometimes they're great ideas, sometimes they're bad ideas. Sometimes a publisher will even approve a bad idea of yours. Ultimately, it all comes down to how you execute it. How talented your team is, how hardworking you are, how motivated you are to have a great product. And that's really what kind of you know separates a great idea from a great execution. Because like I said, ideas are, again, they're on paper, they're just pieces of paper. But
Right.
when you do execute and build something, that is something else altogether. And ultimately, ultimately it comes down to who is that, who are those people that you're going to be working with, who is that team, what kind of talent do they have, what kind of skills do they have, what kind of motivations and desires do they have, how willing are they to to go for it, to really go for it and turn that idea into something amazing. Because, and hyper casual especially, a lot of times what we see is that the first time you execute an idea, it's not good enough. You have to iterate and iterate and iterate, and you have to get somewhere, from a starting point. And who's going to get there? Like a great ideator will have a great idea, probably try it out once, might fail, but a great team will take that idea, keep working on it until it finally succeeds. And there's so many cases of games succeeding after like 9, 10 attempts. You keep going and you keep going and you keep going, and the ones who keep going again are the people, the teams, and those are where really the talent. That's where you can notice the talent. That's where you can see future hits coming from. So I would say, again, to summarize, everyone has an idea, but not everyone has the skills to develop it.
Yeah. To
And
all my
just
listeners,
one more thing to add to that, right? I mean, for sure, you need the execution prowess and whatnot, but also one more important thing is, even if you fail, like how do you take the learning from that failure and self-develop? And also as a publisher, you can give access to teams with like tools, data, all kinds of stuff, right? But at the end of the day, it's a team who has to learn it and provide, and then if you have that provision in the team, and if you have the capabilities in the team, and that really shows with every build that you build, right? With every iteration that you do, and at the end of the day, that's these are the two important factors, like the execution prowess that Surojit mentioned, and the ability to learn from data that you get from your failures.
definitely.
Absolutely, and just to add a little bit more to it, and what we were talking about before is that the publisher's role in this, right, is there's a lot of perseverance that goes into it, right? When you see a lot of failures, when you have tests that fail, you could get demotivated, and sometimes even a talented and a skillful team may get demotivated and may say, I got to stop now, like just failed too many times. And then on the other hand, you have the publisher's role here, which is to provide that guidance and that mentoring and that tutoring and saying, hey, you know what, no, you're good enough, keep going. And that's something else, that comes into play with continuing to go, learning from the data, and having the perseverance as well to continue and keep going, for sure.
Yep, yes, yes, yes. Definitely, it's right. So to all my listeners, if you are planning for hyper casual games, make sure you have right team. Concept can be held by a publisher itself. So coming back to our region, like as we know, like Nazara Games, right? So Nazara is recently acquired a major stake in Publish Me, Middle East-based game publishing agency. So guys, how do you see that as an impact in game publishing industry, especially to MENA and WANA region? Start with Surojit.
So yeah, your voice was breaking up. You're talking about Nazara specifically as.
Yes, yes, yes. So everyone knows about Nazara Games, right? So they have recently taken a major acquisition into Publish Me, a Middle East game publishing agency. So what's your thoughts on that? How it will be impact on game publishing industry, specifically in MENA and WANA region?
So, from what I know about Nazara, amazing company, been around for more than 20 years, just recently went public, and has always had a very special place for the MENA region. I think, not just MENA, but Nazara has spread their wings in many parts of the world now. So, I think Nazara, as a company in general, since they've always been a publisher for so many years now, um, they will have a direct impact on the developer ecosystem. I know that they consciously make efforts to build up the ecosystem. They've done a lot for the industry here as well in India, and I
Yeah,
believe that they will continue to do that everywhere they go, because that's just how they are. Nitish, Manish, these guys are amazing people. They want to benefit the industry. Just from Manish's history in the games industry, you can tell what he's done before, how long he's been here, uh, and the things he's done for the community itself. So I expect that will continue into the future for many many years, because this is what Nazara does, and they will continue to do that. And of course, it's in the best interest of Nazara to build up the ecosystem as well, and to have a bunch of great developers come out of every region that they work in, and MENA especially. WANA, of course, they're already here, and I'm sure in other parts of the world as well.
okay.
I mean, yeah, specific to Nazara, I know Nazara quite well as well. They've been around for so many years, and then they've had like even when their vast business was like kind of dying, they still had like good amount of revenue from MENA and from the MENA region, the WANA region that you speak about, and so I'm guessing that that they're known in the ecosystems over there. As for me, I see it this way, right? I mean, Nazara is from India, and then when you think about the consumer who is investing in the stock market, you're used to like seeing the TCS, Infosys, and now some product companies like Zomato and stuff. And then when you see a gaming company, and it just picks up your interest, right? Oh wow, okay, you can make games, you can have like a job out of it, but you can also go to the stock market, right? And then suddenly, and the large part of the challenge also in these regions, like similar to India, has been that acceptance from your peers and your families and stuff, right? And now because you're like, what, you're going to make games, that's as a career, versus now it's like, oh wow, you are actually going to work in a industry of which there is a public company. Okay, that must be something over there. So you suddenly the acceptance increases, not for developers or anyone who wants to get into the industry in this region. That's my opinion on this.
And since we're talking about Nazara, since they've gone public, Nazara is now synonymous with gaming. Nazara and gaming are like synonymous in the mass market in
Same.
India. People know about Nazara like because it's a public company now, and that's taken gaming mainstream to a big degree. So that's a huge impact that they've had just in India, and again, they will continue to have that impact everywhere else.
Okay. So my next question will be for Surojit specifically. Since CrazyLabs is increasing the footprints of crazy hubs in India, I would like to know what sort of challenges you have seen till now from the indie developers, and what is the overall agenda of having crazy hubs initiative in India?
Right. So the Crazy Hubs Accelerator is a program that was started sometime last year. It was started with the intention of starting the first one in Mumbai with us, but due to the pandemic, unfortunately, we couldn't do it. And eventually, our Mumbai Crazy Hub started earlier this year, just a few months ago. The agenda here for the hubs is to be an accelerator, to be able to train, mentor, guide, and provide funding to young studios who would like to build success in hyper casual, who would not necessarily have the chance or the opportunity elsewhere. The hubs is a physical space where we ask people to join us for a 4 month period, and we train them. We have sessions, mentoring, all sorts of programs arranged to try and help studios accelerate the time it takes to make their first hit game. So that's generally what it is. Obviously, the biggest challenge we faced starting out was that we live in a post-pandemic world, right? And that is something that needs to be taken into consideration. And in India, especially, it's only now that we've seen like the second wave kind of completely go away, and there's still talk about third waves and not enough vaccines and things like that. So that was, of course, the biggest challenge. But I think we've overcome that challenge now. I think the country is like kind of ready to move forward, and that was our primary challenge, to be honest with you. Apart from that, I think the hubs program itself has been amazing. It's running beautifully around the world, and we are very excited to get a few more hubs started up here. It's something that, at least from somebody who's been in this industry to some degree or the other for the last 15 years, since I was like a teenager, basically. I think it's really important for me and my co-founder and our team, when we've had this success of ours, to be able to give back to the community in some way. And the hubs was like the perfect opportunity for us to be able to do that. And
Right.
we were so happy when CrazyLabs strategized this plan and offered it to us last year. We were very excited to get started, and we continue to be excited to bring the opportunity to everyone around the country. I think that's something that is very exciting for me personally, for us as a team, and it's just something. It's like a coming full circle. After you've struggled and struggled and struggled and had your big success, and you're able to take all your learnings and give them back. I think it's very fulfilling. It's a great opportunity for young studios to come and work with us and to learn and to try and build a hit game. We have some of the best people, that are working in the hubs from around the world at CrazyLabs. and we continue to be motivated to build as many hit games with as many studios as possible. So we're excited and looking forward to the future.
Okay, and Balaji, when do you think Sunday will come into India and have some that footprints over here?
Soon, very soon.
Any specific
We
plan for
are.
that?
I mean, we are working on plans, and some things are in motion, and we will make a public announcement about it as soon as something is concrete. But yeah, India remains to be also one of our most strategic or country of importance, right? If you look at the hyper casual developer ecosystem, it's more about how can you get global hits out of like regions like India or MENA or one of for the obvious advantages. Like I said before, you can afford to fail more there, and thereby your learning is. I mean, Firescore is a excellent example of what you're speaking right here. So yeah, we would like to see if we can create or enable more Firescores in India.
Okay. So coming back to one MENA region, what do you generally think the budget of hyper casual game in MENA region? Like any specific thing on that? Like if we want to make a, if someone from MENA or WANA region wanted to make a game hyper casual, what could be a tentative budget for them and how they can approach the publishers?
So maybe I'll talk less in terms of money numbers and more in terms of time. And I think
Yeah.
people can make the jump for the costs. But in general, when we look at a hyper casual prototype, for example, a CPI test or a trailer, or 30-second trailer like that we look for, I would say anywhere between 1 week to 2 weeks is a good time to kind of build a be able to build a trailer. Of course, there are studios who can do it in 3 days and 4 days and 2 days and 1 day sometimes. But then, on average, I think 1 or 2 weeks to build the trailer itself is the CPI test is something that is a good time to look at. To get a game to launch, of course, it depends on how many iterations, how long it takes for you to pass a retention test, or how long it takes to prove the profitability of the game. These are things that you learn in your soft launch, and it could take anywhere from 1 month to 3 months, even 6 months sometimes, to actually get the game to launch. Now, in hyper casual, what tends to happen is that if you take too long to get to launch, your metrics are going to drop. You're not going to have a game to publish at the end of this time. So you need to be quick, and the quicker you are, the better. And that's kind of what plays into the hands of smaller developers, because you can spend the long hours and you can spend the extra time that it takes to get the game to launch quicker, to work a little bit harder than the others, and make a success for yourself. So I'd say yes, so 1 to 2 weeks for a CPI test, and maybe 2 months at most to try and get to launch. So that's something that you could use to work out what the cost would be. And of course, each region is different,
Wonderful.
and the scale of costs in Awana or Mina is like it's negligible compared to somewhere in the West for sure.
Yeah, for us, we don't have a specific budget region-wise. I mean, at the end of the day, it's your cost. We don't even dictate the budget, right? We ask the developer what's your cost, and if it matches with the output, then why not? Doesn't matter that if you are in a one or a MENA region and have the same cost base as somebody in New York, but you can produce great results. It's all that's what decides, right? So, like Surojit mentioned, yeah, it's a time for a prototyping stage. You start with a prototype. We don't do a CPI test specifically. We do marketability test that takes into account different KPIs like IPM and CTR and stuff. And then because for us, we don't necessarily have like a CPI limit. As long as the LTV is greater than CPI, it works for us. It also depends on the complexity of the games, right? If you're talking about a runner, for sure, like you can do something in 3 days or 4 days, especially if you've done a runner before, and you're smart enough to reuse some of your previous assets, you can do it quicker. But if you're talking about like I don't know something like an idle arcade, and you're setting up the world for the first time, then you need some more time. But in the world of hyper casual, if you're doing something more than 2 weeks for your first test, then something is wrong there, right? But also, as we are speaking, this industry is also changing very, very fast. Hyper casual games are getting more complex. So if you are going to tackle like more complex projects early on, then you would need more time. So yeah, we don't have the budget as such. And for example, also It totally depends. Let's say you had a high successful marketability test, and our BI tools tells us, okay, this is going to have a really high LTV, and you need bigger budget to develop this game. Then sure, go for it, right? So yeah, there's no fixed budget. It all depends on the concept and the game you're doing, you as a team, and also the with every what we suggest is that you do a iteration every week, or you do some kind of a test every week, and then the results of the test basically tell you either you're going in the right direction or which direction to take, and then that's what drives the budget.
Okay. So, as a indie game developer or a studio from MENA and WANA region, uh, we would like to know some tips about how we can successfully build a partnership with publishers. What publishers look out actually, and how our indie developers can work around that part.
You want to go ahead, or should I? So I would highly recommend that my colleague Christoph from Sunday gave a talk yesterday about tips on increasing your quality and output if you're a hyper casual studio. Definitely, if you have that kind of processes in place, which means that you're able to develop smart in hyper casual, speed is what matters, right? And the smartness goes in the big way into like you doing something for a week or versus like 3 weeks. So you have, and you don't have to be a big company to have these processes in place. They're just like basic sanity checks or fundamentally right production practices that are super easy, right? And then for us, it's about again, it really doesn't matter. You come up with the next wow idea or wow innovative. Again, innovation can be risk in hyper casual, right? Like high innovation. Um, I think yeah, Zynga had this saying of proven better new. And new is the risky part in hyper casual for sure. If it's proven, it works. You can do it something better. It's great. It's all about how you show that smartness in reading the market. And if you don't, and you say like, you know what, I don't have the bandwidth to read the market, but I have the capabilities to like execute like whatever insights you give from the market, then that works as well. What I highly recommend is you do a self evaluation, and what we call as a skill metrics, where you basically say, okay, these are the people in my studio, these are the strengths they bring in, and these are the areas we really lack. And then you talk with the publisher as to how does that work for them, because each publishing house have their own publishing models or philosophies. For some it's like chasing the lower CPI, for some it's about like having a higher LTV, for some it's about, okay, I want to focus on like idle arcade for the next 2 quarters, and see where the match is, right? And then it really helps the publisher if you're super transparent about, okay, this is the skills I bring to the table, and can we work together? And second is be really open about your financial requirements from day one, right? If there's no point in talking around the bush there. If you say, you know what, I cannot sustain myself, I can only sustain myself for 1 month of free prototyping or paper prototyping. I can't like worry about my paying my monthly bills. Can you provide me a retainer? And there are some publishing houses, especially if someone is very new, they're ready to bet on potential, right? And if you don't have a track record, that's also fine. And then so it really depends on your situation and your ability to be transparent about your situation. It makes your working with the publishing the publishing house is like very smooth.
Absolutely, communication is key here. Uh, being able to talk about what you need to keep yourself sustainable is like probably the number one thing um, that a small studio needs to look out for. Of course, there's general things like having an awesome portfolio always helps. So even if you don't have the most relevant portfolio, sometimes it doesn't take too long to build a hyper casual prototype. If we're talking about building CPI tests or marketability tests in a couple of weeks, then why not do that for your portfolio before you approach a publisher? A lot of times we see non-relevant portfolios, and um, people haven't necessarily known much about hyper casual. Um, trying to get onboarded with a hyper casual publisher. It's great to just take the time, build a little bit of your portfolio out, so that it becomes relevant to the publisher you're approaching. And it doesn't necessarily, again, have to be hyper casual. If you're going to a casual game publisher or a word game publisher or a trivia game publisher, you want to be able to have something relevant to attract their attention. Of course, people will see your talent regardless of what genre of games you're building. But again, like having a portfolio that's relevant and giving the publisher an idea into how you think and what kind of games you're capable of in this space, I think that is something that's super important as well, and can really help build a strong relationship without even having a conversation at first. Because sometimes you're going to send your portfolio and they're just going to have a look at it. And most of the time, a great portfolio is then passed around to all the different publishing managers. Everyone sees it and knows the studio even before one conversation is had. So that's something that's really like, it can attract the attention of a publishing manager, and it can definitely put you in a good light before you even start conversing.
Yep, definitely. Having a good publisher on your board, it helps you a lot to grow. On that note, my next question is, what is the success ratio of mobile games compared to other region and MENA? Like any specific success ratio you guys have observed in your tenure that if you go with other region and if you go with MENA or WANA region, this could be a success ratio difference can get because somewhere again it's a mass audience is there. Let's
See,
start with the
the
Surojit.
difficult question for me to answer, to be completely honest with you, um, because at least for us, the success ratio between Mina and Wana compared to say North America or Western Europe or and things like that is, again, I'll come back to what we discussed right at the beginning, is and it's my perspective on how I see it, is that been such a difference in opportunity, and there's been such a difference in you know um, uh, accessibility of being able to be in the games industry and being able to actually have a studio. In the MENA and Mana regions, again, that opportunity wasn't always there. So yes, in the past, I rarely saw somebody from a MENA and Mana region have a hit game. And that was always the case. You'd always see success ratios were massively higher. We had American companies, European companies building these massive studios, these massive publishing houses, development houses, and you didn't see that too much in say a MENA or a Wana. We had maybe 4 or 5 big game companies in India, and then there were no mid-level companies at all for a long time. There was just small indie studios after that. And now that's changed. So the success ratios have changed, and I think especially in hyper casual, we're seeing that there is a lot of success coming out of the MENA and Vana region, and it's something that's changed over the years. It's something that's not been like this in the past. It's something very new, just a couple of years old, so it's nascent. But um, I say that now we're seeing a big change, a big difference in where the hit games and the maximum number of downloads are coming from. Maybe not the maximum number of revenue for developers in the MENA and Vana region, because we're still talking about hyper casual. But in the future, I believe that will change as well. And this space, this business model offers the opportunity to equalize things. To bring indie developers, small studios in our regions on par with the developers elsewhere.
Okay.
From my perspective, I mean, I won't speak about the consumer. I think what's more relevant to this panel is the what's the impact of games developed in these regions on the global scale, right? And if you're talking
Right.
MENA and WANA, really really big region, but if I would like to highlight Turkey out of the regions that we're speaking, and this year, if you look at the top mobile game hits in the US, 20% of the games came out of Turkey, right? So it's a big huge number, and that's just the tip of this iceberg, right? And just fast forward 3 to 5 years from now, I'm super excited to see how it comes, but it can only go up, right? So the impact is big. And also second thing is, like I said, you really have to look at the cost of the output, right? Out of this, I mean, compare this the cost to generate this 20% of the US top US 100 hits. Compare that to producing these number of games in the US or in Germany for that matter, and just do the math. I mean, it's nowhere near, right? So yeah, it's a fast growing and I would say a very fast learning market. You really see the developers from this ecosystem pick up things quickly. Education systems are really good. Access to data, access to internet is good, and the ability to latch on and put more hours or put more work into their passion. You can see the output just by this one number. I mean, 20% of the top 100 US hits in mobile games. That's crazy, right?
Yeah, definitely. I guess we are very near the end of the session. So I I really had a wonderful speaking to you guys and getting simple insights about MENA and Vana region from the two top publishers. So I would like to see what questions we have from the audience and the other moderator, like what uh, they're expecting from us. I guess always says we can go to the end. So any end statement you guys want to say? We still have 5 minutes.
Sorry, I'm not. Are you going to read some questions, or are we just concluding?
I guess we don't have a question because I
Ah,
just
cool,
get a
cool.
message from moderator. Like guys, we can go to the end. So still we have 5 minutes. So any end statement you'd like to have from your end?
From my end, it would be like keep doing what you're doing. Everyone from these ecosystems are doing great work. And if you're a really good, at the end of the day, if you're a really good content maker, you have the upper hand all the time. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's a game, it's a movie, it's a book. In the entertainment sector, what matters is like if you have the if you have the skills to like do this, but B also more important the perseverance to like go through these failures and make a hit. You can really compete with the next king game or the next like rodeo game or whatever, right? This is the platform to do it, so keep doing, and we from the publishing community are there to support you.
Awesome. I want to say Hyper Games Conference is amazing. Hyper Casual is amazing. You guys are amazing. This industry and the opportunity it's created and the success that we've had is really taught us a lot as a team about what it takes to be successful and then how to help others reach success. One thing about hyper casual is that since this opportunity exists, uh, everyone's tried to become a part of it. Millions and millions of new gamers have been spawned because of it. People who never played games before are playing games now, and there's still people who ask, "Will hyper casual games die soon?" So what I want to say to that is not when will hyper casual games die, but when will everything else become hyper casual? And that's what I want to say goodbye with.
Okay. So on a last note, we got one question from Ayush, a publishing manager. That he says, "Hey Surjit and Balaji, do you feel India in terms of hyper casual game development is going to be the lead producer considering the lower cost and talent quality in the coming years? Or a publisher, Turkey is still the most promising hyper casual creation nation?"
Sorry, I missed some of the words, but if I can, I'll just reiterate the question. You're comparing India's potential to Turkey, right? Because of
Yes,
the
yes,
cost and cool. I would say, yeah. I
exactly,
mean, this is a
exactly.
marathon, right? I mean, it's about like how the it's about the perseverance. Turkey has the first spot now, for example, but why not India? There's no reason that there is no reason that India can like grow more from the dev ecosystem standpoint. But also, this is a large enough pie for everyone. You really don't have the first or the second or third. Everybody has equal opportunity here.
Let's leave it at that. I think that's a great way to wrap things up.
Okay. On that note, thank you so much, guys. Thanks for your valuable time and valuable insights. It will be definitely gonna helpful to so many indie developers and studios, and they will definitely get in touch with you shortly in coming weeks and months. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good day. Bye
Thanks,
bye.
been a pleasure. Bye,
Thanks
bye,
a lot.
Vic. Bye, Surya.
Bye.
Bye, guys.